Think about something really fundamental to your daily life, something that often just happens almost unnoticed. I'm talking about the quiet, constant movement of parcels. That gadget you ordered, maybe vital medical supplies. It's not just packages moving around. It's really the invisible engine powering, well, our whole modern economy. And today, we're doing a deep dive into the future of that engine. We're focusing specifically on the global parcel delivery market. We'll be analyzing projections all the way out to 2033, and our insights are based on the global parcel delivery market forecast to 2033 from Cognitive Market Research. Our goal here is to, cut through the noise, show you the numbers, yes, but also what they really mean for how things move around our world.
And these numbers, they're not just big figures on a page. They represent truly monumental growth. I mean, the global market generated a very robust $388 billion, roughly, back in 2021. That's already on track to hit nearly $500 billion by 2025, so quite soon. But the real story, I think, is the projected surge. We're looking at over $813 billion by 2033.
Wow, $813 billion.
Yeah. Exactly. And that reflects a compound annual growth rate, the CGR, of about 6.4%. It shows this really consistent upward trend, just undeniable accelerating demand pretty much everywhere.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. How do these big global numbers actually break down by region? Maybe we can start with North America. What's the trajectory looking like there?
Sure. North America's parcel market, well, it was already a major player, right? Around $107 billion in 2021. The projection sees that nearly doubling to over $210 billion by 2033.
Doubling.
Yeah. And this represents a pretty solid average growth rate, a CGR of nearly 6% annually. It's really a testament to, established e-commerce habits, sophisticated logistics networks already in place there.
And I imagine within North America, the United States plays just a massive role in that figure, right?
Oh, absolutely. No question. The U.S. accounts for roughly 3/4 of the entire North American market. It's set to grow from around $80 billion in 2021 to over $156 billion by 2033. Again, maintaining that strong average growth rate, almost 6% COGR.
And what's driving that sustained U.S. growth?
Well, it's largely its huge consumer base, naturally, and also this continuous push towards faster, more convenient delivery options.
Makes sense. And beyond the U.S., how are, say, Canada and Mexico figuring into that regional picture? Are they keeping pace?
They certainly are. Canada and Mexico are also on a significant upward path. Both are projected to more than double their market values by 2033. So for Canada, you're looking at over $30 billion, and Mexico around $23 billion. And their HEGRs are comfortably above 6%, which indicates really strong growth. That's likely spurred by, increasing e-commerce adoption and also growing cross-border trade within the continent.
Okay, interesting. So from the Americas, let's pivot now. Let's cross the Atlantic to Europe. What's the landscape looking like there? Are we seeing similar kinds of drivers or maybe some distinct patterns?
Europe's also a substantial market. It generated about $80 billion back in 2021, and it's projected to nearly double as well, hitting over $161 billion by 2033. That gives it an overall KGR of about 6.16%. So still very strong growth. The maturity of its e-commerce market, strong infrastructure, those are definitely key drivers here too.
And within Europe, which countries are really leading the charge?
Germany clearly leads the pack there. Its market value is climbing from about $13.5 billion in 2021, projected to reach nearly $29 billion by 2033. That's a very healthy 6.6% CAGR. The UK is also showing really robust growth. It's moving from just over $8 billion to more than $17 billion. That's a 6.4% CAGR for the UK. Both really benefit from high online retail use and efficient delivery networks.
It is interesting, though, seeing some variations in pace within Europe itself. What about countries like, say, France and Italy? Their growth seems a bit different.
That's right. They're still growing, definitely, but maybe at a slightly more measured pace compared to Germany and the UK. France, for instance, is expected to reach over $18 billion by 2033. That's with a 5.7% CAGR. And Italy is looking at around $10 billion, with the TGR closer to 5.15%.
Any thoughts on why that might be?
Well, it can often reflect, different degrees of e-commerce maturity in those specific markets, or perhaps different consumer preferences, maybe even varying levels of investment in the logistics infrastructure itself. And beyond those major players, we do see steady expansion in other significant European markets too. Think about Russia, Spain, Sweden, Denmark. They're all projected for robust growth. Generally, you're seeing CAGRs in the mid to high 5% range for them, so
Yeah.
effectively doubling their market values by 2033. Even smaller but notable markets like Switzerland and Luxembourg are keeping pace. It indicates pretty broad regional development.
So growth across the board, really.
Yes, but what's quite fascinating here is the rest of Europe category. It actually shows the region's highest momentum. It's surging from about $14 billion in 2021 to an impressive $32.5 billion by 2033. That's a remarkable 7% COGR, over 7%, actually 7.047%.
Wow, higher than the big players.
Exactly. It suggests there are significant growth hotspots, maybe in emerging European markets, perhaps reflecting accelerating digitalization and e-commerce adoption outside those traditional centers.
Right. Now, if you're looking for where let's say, the real energy is in this market, let's turn our attention to Asia Pacific. You called it a powerhouse earlier. It's already massive, $140.5 billion in 2021, and projected to hit an impressive $310.7 billion by 2033. This is a huge number
Mhm.
and a very robust 7% CAGR overall.
Mhm.
What is it about Asia Pacific that makes it such an undeniable force?
Well, it's probably no surprise that China is the region's behemoth. It's clearly the industry-leading growth driver there. China's projected to scale up from over $53 billion to a phenomenal $123 billion by 2033.
$123 billion just for China.
It's just China. And its CAGR is unparalleled, a 7.555%. This kind of explosive growth isn't just about sheer size, although that's part of it. It's really a direct result of China's immense e-commerce market, rapid urbanization, and, importantly, continuous investment in very advanced logistics networks to serve its vast population. And right behind China, you have India making a very significant contribution as well. India is projected to more than double its market from nearly $24 billion to over $56 billion. And its CAGR is also impressive, 7.53%, almost identical to China's growth rate.
Credible rates for both.
Yeah, it reflects India's rapidly expanding internet penetration, the growth of online shopping, especially within its, burgeoning middle class.
Okay, so we have China and India driving these massive numbers. What about the rest of the Asia-Pacific picture? It's a diverse region.
Very diverse. Japan, for example, shows substantial growth too. It's looking to more than double its market to over $33 billion. That's with a 6.5% CAGR. Then you have South Korea, Australia, Singapore. They're also on strong trajectories, generally seeing KGRs in the mid to high 5% and 6% range. These reflect more mature but still definitely expanding digital economies. And we absolutely cannot forget Southeast Asia. That region as a whole is projected to surge from over $21 billion to nearly $46 billion. That's reflecting a strong 6.27% CAGR.
Southeast Asia, that covers a lot of ground.
It does, and it's this really diverse group of rapidly developing economies. They're seeing huge leaps in e-commerce adoption right now. Taiwan also shows solid growth, projected to double its market to over $9 billion. So it's just a really dynamic picture right across the board in APAC, truly fueled by digitalization.
Okay, let's shift gears again. Let's turn our attention to South America. The report suggests it also shows strong momentum, moving from around $22.5 billion in 2021 up to an impressive $56 billion by 2033. That's recording a healthy 6.554% CAGR. What are the key drivers behind this significant growth in South America?
Well, within South America, Brazil really stands out. It's the region's largest market by a fair margin. It's set to grow from nearly $7.5 billion to over $19 billion. And that comes with a strong 6.75% CAGR, higher than the regional average.
And what does that signal for the region?
It's indicative of, well, a growing middle class, certainly increasing internet and smartphone penetration, like we see elsewhere, and just a generally rising comfort level with online shopping across the continent. And other key countries are definitely contributing to the strong regional growth, too. Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Chile, they're all projected for robust expansion. You're generally seeing KGRs above 6% for these countries as well. Effectively, they're doubling or even tripling their market values by 2033 in some cases. So the entire region is clearly on an upward swing as digitalization continues its spread.
Now, in contrast to that, the Middle East seems to present a more modest growth picture, expanding from just over $20 billion in 2021 to around $38 billion by 2033. The THR, there's about 5%, 5.024%. It's still growth, obviously, but what might explain this different pace compared to some of the other regions we've discussed?
That's right. It's steady but definitely more measured expansion. Saudi Arabia leads the region, projected to reach nearly $16 billion by 2033. Its CAGR is just under 5% at 4.986%. Turkey follows, looking at around $8.6 billion, with a slightly lower CAGR again, about 4.85%.
And the reasons for that slower pace?
It can often be attributed to, well, a mix of factors, maybe varying stages of e-commerce adoption compared to more mature markets, perhaps different infrastructural development timelines, or potentially just different consumer behaviors around online shopping in that region. We also see the UAE, Egypt, and Qatar showing consistent growth, though. Their CGRs are generally in the 5% to 5.4% range. So while they are embracing digitalization, the overall pattern suggests a market that's developing at its own unique pace, possibly with different kinds of logistics challenges or maybe fewer cross-border trade volumes than some other areas we've looked at.
Okay, that makes sense. And finally, let's conclude our regional breakdown with Africa. The report shows solid expansion there, too. The market's projected to grow from nearly $18 billion in 2021 to over $36.6 billion by 2033. That's an overall CAGR of 5.5%, 5.505%. What's driving this growth across the African continent?
In Africa, Nigeria is really leading the charge in terms of growth rate. It's projected to more than double its market, going from over $4.3 billion to over $9 billion. That's with a 5.72% CAGR. South Africa also shows significant growth, although starting from a larger base. It's rising from nearly $7.5 billion to over $15 million by 2033. Its CAGR is slightly lower, around 5.346%.
And the underlying drivers?
Well, this indicates clear development and increasing parcel activity right across the continent. It seems to be largely driven by a rapidly growing youth population, definitely increased internet access becoming more widespread, and also the emergence of more local e-commerce platforms catering specifically to African markets.
Right. So we've gone around the globe. What does this all mean when we pull it all together? The overarching narrative seems pretty clear, doesn't it? We're seeing consistent, substantial global growth in parcel delivery basically everywhere. But it really looks like Asia Pacific and, interestingly, South America are showing particularly strong momentum. They're driving the highest growth rates, often well above that global average you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, these dramatic trends are directly tied to those broader economic drivers. We're talking about increasing digitalization, obviously, the continued really rapid rise of e-commerce that's just transforming retail, and also expanding cross-border trade, which effectively makes the world feel smaller for consumers and businesses. So what this data powerfully reinforces, I think, is the idea that parcel delivery isn't just some background service anymore. It's becoming an increasingly central, almost indispensable component of the global economy. And it's set to play an even more critical role in the next decade.
It really is staggering. Given these projections, a market set to more than double globally to over $800 billion. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How might our everyday lives, just from how we shop online, to how entire supply chains function behind the scenes? How might all that be fundamentally reshaped by this largely unseen but clearly accelerating engine of the global economy? What new opportunities, or maybe even challenges, might come out of such a massive expansion in how goods physically move around our world? Definitely something for all of us to think about long after this deep dive.